welcome back. If you were here for the earlier session, welcome to those who are just joining us. We just had a panel that spoke about how growth systems are breaking down and building back in real time, where product and marketing starts and finishes, where boundaries are being built but also are disintegrating. We're now going to focus on one of the biggest forces accelerating that shift. Probably the most used term at CES this year, and maybe for the year in 2026. Does anyone care to take a guess? Agentic AI. We could probably turn it into a drinking game. I'm joined by Penny Pritzker, senior fellow at Harvard, Microsoft board member, former US Secretary of Commerce, and a trusted advisor to us at DEPT. Penny, thank you for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're joining us.
So Agentic AI is everywhere, but how many people could actually, in one simple phrase that your grandmother could understand, say, what is it, where is it, and how would you measure it? There's a lot of things that are still unclear. It's more complicated than that, but a couple of things are very clear, and we heard about some of them from our panelists earlier in the earlier session. Number one, algorithms are determining how brands are showing up, which brands are showing up, which brands are being recommended. And number two, we have to go behind the curtain. Success in this is about aligned teams. It's about data integrity and trust, and it's about clear processes. And without any of that, Agentic AI is just scaling chaos and confusion. And so I think that's the shift. Agentic AI doesn't solve the problems or take them away. It actually raises the standards for where we need to be. So Penny, you have evaluated innovation across government, startups, multinational enterprises. When a concept like this suddenly shows up everywhere, what do leaders actually need to focus on?
Well, what I've seen in the past is, and this is something to caution us, is there's just a focus on the tool, right? But the real differentiator is never the tool. It's how you use the tool. And so that's the challenge for all of us as leaders here. What are we going to do? And the other challenge is the speed at which we can adopt this tool. And so this is the issues that face us with the Agentic AI. And that's true for us, and it's true for all of us in this room, and it's true for our competitors. So it's a really incredibly important question. How do we lead through this? And for me, what I think is most important is, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, we have to step back and say, what problems are we trying to solve? And for me in my business, I'm like, what business are we in? And then how can the tool help us with that? But in my experience, most failures aren't technology failures. It's rather process failure. It's how are we addressing it? And so the real question for us is, as leaders, is to set clear objectives. What do I want to have happen? It's to develop metrics for success. How do I define success? And not just share that internally. We were talking in the earlier panel about actually how do you cascade that down, but also share with your partners. Because success today is no longer, I've got the solution, I'm selling you the solution, but rather, I've got an idea. What do we as a team think is the right solution? Or how do we collectively work together? The third is driving alignment. And the fourth is really something I'm going to say over and over again. You as leaders, we as leaders, have to repeat our message and our strategy. They say it takes 7 times for it to sink in. I think it takes 50. And I think one of the hardest parts for us as leaders is it gets boring. It gets really boring. You're repeating yourself. It's like, oh my God, do I have to say that again? But the reality is that's a really important. Once you've got clarity, first it's understanding where you don't have clarity. We were just talking about that. And then really coming to clarity. And then it's a lot about driving that throughout your organization and figuring out ways to do that.
I love that. It's not a technology challenge, it's a leadership challenge.
And a process challenge. And we have to really recognize we have to change processes. And that is really hard. That's cultural. That's fundamental.
Yeah. We have an amazing group of leaders who are doing exactly that, figuring out when agentic AI is the right solution, when and how do you keep a human in the loop, and how do you actually realize its full potential. So we're going to watch a short video and then welcome Isabel Perry and our amazing panelists to the stage.
Thanks for all being here.
Walmart and ChatGPT are teaming up.
Good morning, hello, welcome to all humans in the room, and welcome to the AI agents that will be retrospectively mining this recording for intelligence. I'm Isabel Perry, I'm the Global EVP of Strategy at DEPT, which means I help our clients find new paths to growth. For the last 7 years, we've been laying the foundations to build the future of the agentic web, and it really feels like this year we're at a moment where there's this nascent agent application layer, which will be the sort of golden age of value creation for the next decade or two. As Penny said, this will be reconfiguring how we work, but it will also be reconfiguring the way that brands are found, promoted, sold, served. And this raises so many questions, so I am incredibly excited to have the opportunity of asking some of them to our brilliant leaders who are buying, building, and analyzing the future agentic systems that will drive the next decades of growth. Hanneke Faber. Hanneke Faber is the CEO of Logitech, where she is leading the company's evolution towards intelligent AI-augmented devices and experiences used by millions of creators, gamers, and knowledge workers around the world. Huge welcome to Hanneke. Thank you for being here. Round of applause, please. Jay Pattisall is a VP Principal Analyst at Forrester, who advises the world's top brands and agencies on AI-driven marketing transformation and content development, with a front-row view into how organizations are evaluating and implementing agentic AI today. A round of applause for Jay, please. And Mandeep Bhatia is the SVP of Global Digital Product and Omnichannel at Tapestry. He is a driving force behind the company's enterprise AI initiatives, including its work in agentic search and next-generation customer experiences. Round of applause for Mandeep, please. So let's start with clarity. I think separating the signal from the noise in the deafening AI hype cycles is extraordinarily challenging. And even the most informed opinions are wildly contradictory. So Jay, no better man to ask than you, no pressure. How do you define agentic AI, and how is it different from large language models and other terminology which is commonly confused with agents?
Well, thank you, Isabel, and hello to everybody. Forrester defines agentic AI as systems of foundation models and architectures and rules-based systems that come together that enable software to take actions, and this is the important part, with increasingly growing amounts of autonomy. So what I want you guys to do is to visualize that the x-axis of this figure that I'm going to illustrate for you is all about the level of actions that can be taken, and then the other axis to be about autonomy. And so your question was, how does agentic AI, and my gobbledygook of a definition, how does it relate to other parts of AI? The things like foundation models or RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, or basic rules-based robotics process automation or digital process automation. So at the very bottom of that, where actions are low and autonomy is low, you find things like foundation models or LLMs and robotics process automation, and RAG kind of fits in there too. So these are systems that need a tremendous amount of prompt, they need context, they need direction, and they cannot take actions by themselves per se, and do not have any degree really of autonomy. All of that, they have no agency. All of that is within the user. But as we move further up and to the right of this figure, that's where you start to get into this world of agentic. And think about the middle section of that as agentish, right? Which is to say that it is growing in autonomy. It is able to complete more actions by using the systems, using the automation, using and tapping into LLMs and vector databases and things like that. And that's where we're seeing the most activity, if you will, in this world of quote unquote agentic AI. At the top right-hand quarter is the area that is truly what is defined as agentic AI, where it has the most autonomy and it can complete the most complex action, like true executive functioning, making decisions. This is the scary stuff, quite frankly, because there are fewer people involved. And that world is not quite yet realized. We're really dealing with these first two areas of low autonomy, low action, mid-autonomy, mid-action, this world of agentish, if you will.
So without being too glib, agents have agency.
Yes.
It's in the name.
Yes, they do.
And Mandeep, you help shape the consumer experience across Kate Spade and Coach. Are agents already part of the retail journey? And what sort of unique challenges does a multi-brand luxury portfolio face?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think what AI and agentic AI has done is put customer at the center. There isn't a talk where people are talking about AI, but at the same time, they're talking about the customer. And for us, building that for brands, Coach, Kate Spade, for us, the purpose is extremely important. The courage to be real, the emotional connection with the customer. How do we build that emotional connection? So if you think about the journey, people were talking about the funnel is dead, but then funnel is alive, and people going from all the way from finding the product, discovering the product, to purchase and post-purchase experience, right? If you think about it, the step one is, first I'm going to give you some semi-useful stats, which you can then go and take. Where are the customers, Gen Z especially, starting their search, right? 51% of them are still starting at TikTok. But then right after that is ChatGPT, right? And so that first interaction now, that discovery, your customer is at ChatGPT. 57% of Gen Z interact on a daily basis with ChatGPT. So you have to be where your customer is. When the customer asks for a bag, like best bag for party, I'm going to this party, or best bag for my daughter just went to college, best bag for college, well, or your brand or brands need to show up. And so how does that happen, right? So SEO is the new AEO. Conversations are the new keywords. You have to show up. So you have to optimize your data. You have to make sure that customers are able to find you. They are able to discover your brand. They are able to get information. All of the discovery is happening there. Comparisons are happening there. And then they are coming to your website. So step one is starting there. And step two is when they come to your website, who teaches the customers how they shop? Right? It's the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world, how they interact. And so the world is becoming more chatty, right? What used to be keyword, or it was more robotic, is becoming more human. You see the irony in that? Like agentic AI is making the world more human, basically, where conversation, instead of links and keywords, are becoming prevalent. So when they come to your website, you have to make sure that they can find that experience is personalized, that they can converse with your website. And then after that, when they make the purchase and when they come back, 50+% of the customers at any place you will talk to any retailer, their first question is, where is my order, right? And so, or any of the concerns around, not concerns, but returns, exchanges, any of the post-purchase stuff, all of that in entire journey, you can make it more human, you can make it more personalized through agentic AI.
Which reminds me of us listening to a podcast with the head of growth at Lovable, and she said it's no longer enough to be an MVP. You need to be the minimum lovable product, which is like the most human, which I suppose is, at the beating heart of what Logitech does. We've already said, terrifying, loud, deafening hype cycles, Hanneke, GPTs, Gen AI, orchestration, agents, and your job sort of to navigate through that noise. How has or has not the Logitech sort of global strategy changed in response to this extraordinary technological world?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that actually don't change for us. So hopefully you all know Logitech. Hopefully you use our mouse, our keyboard, our camera. Yes, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Our purpose is to extend human potential in work and play. And that is more important than ever in the age of AI. So we try to make every human, a little more productive, help you win that game, perform better, and help you connect more easily with our video conferencing tools. Those things don't change. We want to make humans better. But what's exciting is that AI is helping us do that in much better ways. So the second thing that doesn't change is, the core of what we do is design-led, software-enabled hardware. That's what we will continue to do. But again, in the age of AI, the software enablement and the AI enablement of that hardware is really exciting. And hardware is super sexy again, as you will see here at CES, in the age of AI. And we like to say in the Valley, people like to say hardware is hard. Yes, it's very hard, but we happen to be quite good at it. So this is an exciting time for us. And then I would say the thing that does change in our strategy is because of all the opportunities of AI, we need to grow faster, but do that with the resources that we have. And that's productivity. And, to the points you just heard, we're a company of engineers, and we've been fortunate that we've created more than 1,500 internal AI agents last year that are helping us to grow faster with the same number of people.
And can I just ask, who's making them? Is it individuals? Is it teams? What's the approach to that?
Yeah. So it's individuals and teams, and it's really looking for pain points. Penny said it earlier. Start with, what am I trying to solve for? So there's the obvious ones in software engineering, can I code faster? Can I test faster? All of those things. In customer service, really obvious issues. Marketing and engineering, a little less obvious, but when you actually talk to the people in marketing and in engineering, they'll know exactly where they want agents to augment their teams and to augment the humans. So we are encouraging everyone to build agents, but it comes bottom up. And it's not very often done with external partners, actually. It's done internally, and that gives the people agency as well as agents.
Could I just add that I think that point about starting with the objective or starting with what you're trying to accomplish is really important, because the early days of automation was all about starting with, well, what are we doing repetitively that we don't need to be doing? It had a very much of a replacement mentality, which is still true and is still valid when it comes to certain tools and certain systems. But we've moved away from that into quite frankly a new paradigm, a new objective, which is focusing on what the solution is and how the technology and the people work together to accomplish that. And so I think your point was really spot on.
And I suppose that bridge, like the relationship between the people and the technology, has always been there at Logitech. And how is that strategy now playing out in your products?
Yeah, of course, in the end, it has to come to life in products, right? That's what we do. So I'll give you one example of a product that we've recently built, and that is actually an agent. And again, let me start by what was the problem we were trying to solve. So I'm sure you've all been in video conferencing meetings where one side you're at this long table, and there's like 16 of you, around this long table, and then there's a video in the front of the room, and there's 8 people on the other side, and they will never know who's talking because all they see is these tiny little heads around the room, and they don't really feel like they're part of this conversation. So the old video conferencing equipment was just like this dumb bar at the front of the room. We launched this Logitech Sight, actually won Times Invention of the Year. It sits in the middle of the room. It looks around. It hears around, and therefore it knows that Johnny's talking. So when Johnny's talking, Johnny's going to be big on the screen. When Johnny's talking to Betty across the table, both of them are going to be big on the screen. So everyone feels that they know what's going on. When I'm in that meeting and I'm opening a packet of chips, it also knows that it shouldn't focus on me. Or if I'm typing, multitasking, this happens, it also knows that that is a sound that it should block out. If someone's walking by on the outside, which also happens in meetings, it creates a digital cocoon and it blocks that out. So that product is an agent that sees, that hears, is a sensor, and then acts on that. I like to say it's like having Steven Spielberg in your meeting, producing your video conferencing meeting. So that is one example where AI has really helped us sensing and then creating a much better experience.
I think that's such a wonderful example of taste playing out. I think everyone's going to hear a lot of people saying that taste is the new skill everyone needs to build in the world with AI, because AI can do all of the hard work. And that is an example of where the camera has taste in knowing what to cut out. So that's interesting. Mandeep, as agentic ecosystems mature, brands are facing a real strategic choice around whether or not you take your brand to the new AI platforms like ChatGPT, AI surfaces, or if you try and build a sort of protective walled gardens around your existing own channels. And I know that you've been making decisions in that space, so I'd love to hear how you're approaching that and your thoughts.
Yeah, first, the approach. One of my other goals is to make sure that you take enough frameworks with you. So the other framework, which is not my framework, but it's a good framework to think about, is defend, extend, and append, right? So when I was talking about being discoverable, being where your customers are, that's simply, you have to just be there. That's defensive strategy, right? If you're not there and everyone else is there, you're going to lose ground, basically. So you have to defend that, right? When it comes to like agentic commerce, so we talked about discovery in the first part. Now we are talking about commerce. So in this commerce space, that's where you can apply this extend framework, right? Which is, everybody is nervous about the new channel, it's going to replace, will you have control over your customers? And my take on that is, it's not new. Your customer, if your brand is only functional, there is no connection, then yes. But if you are building that emotional connection, if you are building that trust with your customers, then you just need to extend that journey and delight, just like any other marketplaces. So yes, we are working on, initiatives where people hopefully can, if they want to buy our product at ChatGPT, they will be able to buy the product at ChatGPT. It's no different. Google had Google Shopping forever. And did it replace all channels and the brand websites? And no, it didn't, right? So, but we are, if that's what the customer wants, then we want to be there for that. And then the next thing is append, right? Like, what is it that can totally append? And that's where I'll go to where Hanneke was saying, like, what is it that is not going to change, right? And you have to focus on that. And you have to make sure that you are using agentic for storytelling, for campaigns, for expressing the creativity, and making sure that you're not getting appended, but also you can append by gaining that speed. So the biggest thing that agentic will give you, yes, people talk about efficiency, yes, people talk about productivity, but what people are not talking enough is its speed. And that speed is a competitive advantage. And so that's the main thing that's how we think about it. So I hope that answers your question.
I love what Mandeep is saying on discoverability, especially. I think in the age of AI, obviously you have to be able to be discovered by ChatGPT and other agents, but that for us has also led to new creativity. Like many brands, we saw our search results go down. We needed to figure out what's the right content to be discovered. by LLMs. So it's much better now. One of the things we found on keyboards, to give you a very basic example. So we thought if we had the right content on, what's the best keyboard for gaming, what's the best keyboard for work, we would be all right. We weren't all right. So we really started to look into what is the content we need. What do you think people look for on keyboards? Anyone? How do I clean my keyboard? It's like the number one thing. We never knew this. We should have. We've created a lot of content on how to clean your keyboard, and that has helped discoverability. So, that's just one example of where it does allow for new insights and creativity.
And also, I suppose, Mandeep, you're basically seeing it as expansionary rather than a defensive play, in that it's just speaking to more consumer needs and customer behaviors.
Yeah, yes, it is,
Yeah.
right? And you can, everybody talks about what will happen with all of this AI, right? Let's talk two broad stroke scenarios, right? Either it's like this Givon's paradox, which is it'll create more speed, expansionary, it will basically create more jobs, it'll create more opportunities, new ways of working, and there'll be abundance. And then the second scenario that generally people talk about is, it'll cause displacement and all of that kind of stuff. And again, I'll go back to what Hanneke was saying here. Focus on what's not going to change, right? Like Bezos said, people will always want broader selection, faster delivery, those kind of things. What is true for your brand? What is not going to change? For us, that's why do you have a purpose which you can explain in plain English, like courage to be real? Why do you exist? And then focus on those things, basically, right? Use AI for those things. Trust will become even more important in my mind, because when, if it's a $10, $20 purchase, maybe a different story. But when in both scenarios, customer, when they value connection, and if the dollar is more valuable one way or the other, where will they want to go and spend their money, right? They will want to go and spend it where they can trust, authenticity is valuable, they can associate with brand values, right? And so just focusing on those things and having a lot of empathy with your employees, quite frankly, to bring them along are the values which are going to be even more valuable in this day and age.
Great. So we've got 11 minutes on the clock, so I'm going to do a few more slightly quick-fire questions, because there's so much to cover. Jay, what's the best agentic AI experience or use case that you saw last year which drove ROI?
There are a few. The one that's coming to mind is again in that realm of agentish, where there's some actions that are being taken by the agents, but there's still humans involved. There is a Netherlands-based insurance company called CED Europe that was grappling with the problem of they've got about 600,000 or so unstructured email or attachment or digital communications that are associated with processing claims and so on and so forth. And they were using a team of FTEs to manually sort through a lot of that information. And by leveraging an agent platform that was designed to look at very specific tasks, like one agent looking specifically at the attachments that are being uploaded, another agent looking at the claims form, so on and so forth, they were able to speed up that process and redirect their FTEs to provide themselves 80% more focus on customer service as opposed to back-end processing. So the agents were able to create efficiency, but they were able to take that efficiency and turn it into effectiveness, if you will, in their delivery. So that was, I think, a really great example. And then the other one that I'll mention kind of broadly, just in the marketing world, are the platforms that agencies are building specifically for audience and media activation. And whether that be DEPT's Orchestrate platform or WPP Open or any of the others that are out there, I mean, they are using agents that target specific activities. One will look specifically at audiences. Another will hand off to that to generate objectives and goals and just kind of like truncate the workflow, and things that were happening in weeks are now happening in days and hours. And there's a lot of time saved efficiency that can be redirected as either efficiency for clients or efficiency for the agency to do more for their clients.
Yeah, and I think just on Orchestrate, that's basically where we've put the client experience at the center of how we approach building out our agentic system for that. Hanneke, how do you do that at Logitech? How do you approach sort of putting your customer at the center of the way in which you are incorporating AI into your products and experiences?
Again, this is something that doesn't change. So we are design led. We always start from the customer and the consumer, and we look at what are their problems. So that doesn't change. That's been Logitech for 45 years. And if I give you one other example, again, of a product that I'm excited about, it's a really new product, so I don't know yet if it's going to have great ROI, but I suspect it will. The problem that we were trying to solve for big business customers was room health. So you get in a meeting room, it's too hot, or there's 12 seats, but there's only ever one person in that room. Or the CO2 levels are too high, which you don't know, but can make you feel really sluggish. So we launched a Logitech Spot, which is a really simple little disc, can go on the table, can go on the wall. It's a sensor that measures room, it has eyes too, sees occupancy, it measures temperature, measures CO2 levels in the room, and then recommends and acts on temperature and CO2 to make it ideal for the number of people in that room. And if it sees that that room always only has one person, then for the IT manager or the workplace services manager, they can change the way that room is set up. So I think that's the kind of sensors that are going to make everyday life better for people. And again, that's very much AI and machine learning driven.
And Mandeep, because you have two brands within Tapestry and they have slightly different audiences, does that change the way in which you're approaching your AI strategy for the different brands, or is it not like that?
No, not necessarily. Again, right? Like, if you start with the customer, the application could be different. The stories that you're telling is different, right? But that's where the human and the creative element comes. But the tools, the processes, they are more or less the same.
Jay, as AI surfaces begin to intermediate more brand experiences, one of the threats that you could be facing as a brand is how do you maintain your brand differentiation in a world where you might not have as much control as you have historically? What do you think is the solution there?
Yeah, great question. I think early on there was a great deal of concern, particularly for customer or consumer-facing materials that were produced by AI would look, feel, act, say the same things and look quite similar. I think that threat, of course, is still there. So part of the solution is building your brand into your AI intelligence layer, so that anything that you execute understands not only your brand standards or your style guide, but like the essence of what you are. For example, the very human vision that you outlined for Logitech to empower people, and what does that look like and what does that feel? So I think that's one element of it. Another element of it, it relates to what Mandeep was saying about just how consumer behavior has changed, particularly in the Gen Z generation, using ChatGPT or LLMs as search destinations. And what I think, to cut to the chase, there's a new audience, right? We've heard B2B, we've heard B2C, now it's B2A. So it's kind of the ABCs of targeting, isn't it? Right?
Everyone write that down.
Yes, please do. Jay Pattisall, Forrester. Thank you. B2A, right? B2 agent, B2 agentic, B2 software. We have a new audience. We're speaking to the machines. And so we're through the looking glass when it comes to building content. Content, yes, is for all these other audiences, but it's also kind of, you got to flip things around because we're building content to influence engines. We're building websites that are to be scraped. We're building content in and earned and owned places that is scraped so that an LLM can understand what you want it to understand about your brand. A great example of this was what Allegra did with a very basic campaign for their Allegra product. It's an over-counter allergy medication. I think I'm going to take some afterwards. I'm dying out here in the desert. But nonetheless, Allegra is a great choice for me because it's non-drowsy. And that's its proposition, is non-drowsy. But how did they get non-drowsy into the LLM? They used content so that the commercial and public LLMs would scrape that content and play back its non-drowsy proposition. And so this campaign that they created was called Drowsy Prompts. And if you went and asked ChatGPT, what would I be like with Allegra out in a boat having a good time? And it would talk about how peppy and active you are and would play back that non-drowsy proposition. And they took it a little bit further in that it would kind of ding its competitors slightly and talk about the drowsy qualities of competitive brands. And so they did a really good job of hacking the LLM. And that's what you got to do with your content, is hack the LLMs and hack the agentic systems, so to speak, influence them to play back your brand. And that is a very different proposition from mass marketing and digital marketing as we know it.
Yeah, and like kudos to them. They turned AEO, Geo into the creative campaign, which is smart in 2025. I would like to know if in one line, if there are any other existential challenges facing brands right now in this new era. If there's not, then we can move on to the next question.
Human displacement.
Community displacement.
Human
displacement.
Employee displacement. Okay. We're in an unfortunate environment right now where coming out of the macro economic environment, pandemic and whatnot, where the balance of power has slightly shifted from employee to employer, and there are many companies that are looking at AI as an efficiency strategy and trying to figure out how they can use AI to cut costs, which is an absolute legitimate objective, but it's not the only objective. And it really creates an enormous societal and business tension of replacing human ingenuity. And I think in the long run, it's a fool's errand.
And I guess what we're really speaking about there is like just how do you manage elegantly, empathetically, and strategically massive transformation when you're basically thinking about how technology and humans relate to one another. Hanneke, you've been doing that at Logitech for the last 50 years, not you personally. But like, any advice on that sort of transformation mindset?
I think this is a time to take a lot of at-bats. And that's what we're doing at Logitech. Again, more than 1,500 agents created in the last year. We take a lot of at-bats. Not all of them are going to be home runs. Honestly, many of them are singles. Some of them aren't even singles. But if there's a few home runs in those, then I'm really happy. So this is the time to really do that. Let 1,000 flowers bloom.
I love that. And then please, going down, Mandeep, you first. What is the best piece of advice that you have heard or been told around approaching?
I'll give you two. One is be a technology teenager. One of our C-suite executives, I won't tell you who, but I was sitting next to them, and they opened up, and they were trying to create an agent. And they had code, and they were playing with it. That's extremely inspiring, right? Because, look, the best thing that you can do is associates and employees are at the heart of the business. And so to be honest with them and to have a lot of empathy with them and to be real with them and help them, train them for this next wave which is coming. And how do you do that? Be a technology teenager. All of you go and create an agent, basically.
Jay.
I thought we heard the advice from both of you earlier that was great, which was focus on the things that don't change, and don't be don't be misguided by thinking that the tools can, completely replace everything that you're doing and transform everything that you're doing. There's things that you have to focus on that don't change.
And Mandeep, you said you had two. Sorry, what was the second?
Well, the first one was be the technology teenager. Second, have a lot of empathy. This is for the leaders, for your associates, for your employees, because they are at the heart of the business. The person who created that Allegra ad was not AI, it was human. So if you help them with these tools, you will unleash the creativity that can happen. So, and then they will have the connection with you, and that will be a competitive edge. I don't look at it just as cost, it's speed to me, basically. And how do you unleash that speed through your associates?
Great, thank you. And Hanneke, last best advice you've heard?
Let 1,000 flowers bloom, really. This is the time to do that, and it's going to be such an exciting year. I think we're all privileged to work at this time and age.
So true. And with that, I'd love to welcome one or two questions from the floor, if anyone has them. Yes, please. Do you need a mic?
We have a mic coming.
Great.
Thank you. Was that you?
Thank you. Actually, I have two questions, one for Hanneke and one for Mandeep. Hanneke, I grew up with Windows 95 and those old school mouse, which had a heavy ball and the wires. So I've seen the growth of mouse from that era to this era, and now we have keyboards where you don't even need a keyboard because you have the virtual keyboards. The monitors actually put a laser display and you can type on that. So with your evolution at Logitech, how you're trying to stay relevant with all your competition and peers like Microsoft's? That's the question for you, and then I'll come to Mandeep. Mandeep, or maybe I can wait for your
Sure.
response.
No, we're constantly running a process that we call future casting, where we look 5 years out and we say, okay, what will the world look like? And we paint a few scenarios, 4 or 5, which by definition are wrong, by the way, because they're 5 years out. But then we work back and we say, okay, what does that mean for where we should allocate our resources today? And that's why you see us do some things that aren't huge today, but that we feel we need to work on. So we launched with Meta, the MX Ink, which is a stylus for the Quest, AR, VR headset, also very much AI machine learning enabled. It's really small today, but as AR, VR grows, we need to be in there early with the big boys. So we also did one for the Apple Vision Pro. Think of that what you want. But again, we want to be in there early, learn with them, learn with the technology. And we do that through future casting. So a lot of what we do is on the core, but we always have a few things out there that are a little further out.
And with that, may I please have a huge round of applause for Hanneke, Jay, and Mandeep. Thank you so much for coming today, and enjoy the rest of the DEPT session.